Listen, you cannot only stay in your space of comfort. Otherwise, that market or that circle, that sphere of influence, that's going to dry up at some point, right? You've got to figure out how to create new connections.
Hello and welcome to episode 113 of the Smart Agents Podcast. My name is Michael Walter and I'll be your host. In today's episode, we are joined by award-winning public speaker and corporate trainer Robert Kennedy III. In fact, if you're attending the National Association of Realtors convention later on this week in Orlando, you can catch Robert on stage. Throughout our conversation, Robert shares how agents can modify their communication styles and sales pitch to highlight their personal stories in order to build a stronger connection with their leads. Now, before we get on to the day's featured interview, make sure to subscribe to the Smart Agents Podcast. You can find the show on all major podcasting platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and now Amazon Music. Also, if you or someone else on your team has an awesome story or tip to share with our community, send us a message at feedback@smartagents.com. We're always on the lookout for new stories to share. All right, let's get on to the day's featured interview with Robert Kennedy III. If you're interested in more of his great tips, check out the episode description. I've included links to all of Robert's social media channels and website. The way I like to start everything out is if you could introduce yourself to us a little bit, who you are and what you do.
Hey, Michael, do me a favor. I'd like for you to introduce me really quickly, and let's start this over again because I'm a speaker and I kind of like to make an entrance. How about this? You ready? So just say, ladies and gentlemen, introducing Robert Kennedy III.
Ladies and gentlemen, introducing Robert Kennedy III. I have never had anybody do that before. It is awesome. I'm now, into 100 plus of these, and that's the first time I've ever had confetti fly for. That's awesome.
Yeah, awesome, man. Well, I'm glad to be here with you, man. So, introducing myself. Wow, I am on the personal side a husband. My wife and I celebrated 22 years in August. I'm a dad. I've got 3 kids, 1 in college, 2 in high school. And as a dad, sometimes you end up being a coach, right? So my boys are into everything: soccer, basketball, baseball. I'll be coaching them in a baseball workout on Sunday. And so that's the personal side of things, man. I run a training company. We've been focused in the communication space for a few years, teaching about how to communicate effectively, how to present powerfully, how to incorporate storytelling as the framework of your communication so that you can ultimately move people to action. And so in the real estate space, I was a real estate agent in the state of Massachusetts from 2004 to 2008. That was back in the day when you could just open up your front door and sell a house without any effort at all. And so I moved from Massachusetts to Maryland in 2008 as well. And just now I'm getting my license again here in the state of Maryland. Of course, training is my main deal, but I love the real estate space, man.
Awesome. And I totally understand the coaching. My son is also super into baseball, and we are right in the thick of the whole fall tournament schedule right now.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Awesome.
Well, cool. Well, obviously with the real estate experience, that, to stand out, you really you have to find that USP and what separates you from every other agent in your market. And I think a lot of times, just sharing exactly who you are does wonders for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, sharing who you are, and it's a little bit more than just simply sharing who you are. It's really about establishing rapport and creating connection with people, right? Because sometimes, even if I share who I am, a person may not be ready to receive or hear that. I've got to figure out what's that entry point. What's that thing that I can say to grab their attention, create a video in their head, connect with an experience that they're having. And so then after I share that experience and connect on that level, they're like, oh my gosh, Michael understands me. Michael totally completes me. Michael gets me. Michael knows who I am. Michael speaks my language, right? So we really got to figure out how to create that connection. Storytelling is one of the best ways to do that, but you also have to be aware of connecting with people as your first thing before you just say, hey, I'm going to tell some stories.
Right. So how was it that when did you come to this realization that this is really the best way to to make sales and to connect with people on more of a and more than just the transactional, value.
Yeah, so I remember when I first became an agent, and they were telling me, "Hey, here is how you get people in your funnel, right? You got to go to your sphere of influence. Just say to everybody, 'Hey, I'm an agent,' and then everybody's gonna come flocking to you and say, 'Sell my house, please.'" And or you could send stuff out in the neighborhood, and that was good, and that was fine. But every agent was doing that, right? Every agent was doing the standard marketing techniques. How do I stand out, or how do I make a difference? I remember, and this is not a an agent story, but I remember one day I was sitting in my living room. I lived in the state of Massachusetts at the time, and a my doorbell rang. So I go to the door and I look out the window, and there's this guy standing in my driveway. He's got this big display board with some little square swatches on it. I go outside. He's like, "Hey, my name's Mark, and I'm selling carpet. I've got all sorts of carpet here. I've got the Berber, I've got the low pile, the high pile, the Goma pile." Yeah, you might understand that if you're like more than, yeah. Anyway, I've got the Austin Powers shag. I've got all of these different types of things. And so he's like, "Can you feel them?" So I feel them and I touch them. And then after a little while, I touch them for maybe about 2 or 3 minutes. And after a little while, I open my front door and I show him the inside of my house, and it's all hardwood. And he says, "Okay, thanks." And he walks down the street. Right? So, I mean, he came to me with an experience. He came to me in some ways with a story of some sort, but he didn't connect with me,
Mhm.
right? He didn't connect with me. What could he have done? He could have done something like, he could have said, "Hey, my name's Mark. I just came across from across the street talking to your neighbor, Judy. And we were talking about how much she absolutely hates her oil bill. I couldn't help but notice that you have an oil tank out front. How are you feeling about your heating bill?" You think that's going to spark a conversation with me? Yes, it is, because I'm like, OMG, dude, I totally hate this oil thing. I wish somebody would just, like, figure out how to heat my house without this stuff. Right? I'm connected. We're having a conversation. He can go anywhere he wants from there, because we've created that connection now, right? Instead of him just trying to sell me something.
Right. So, I mean, I think, and so many times I have these conversations with people about, really, uh, how to share and how to connect with people and how to figure out, how to build those connections with people. A lot of it comes down to just listening and picking up
Yeah.
on, those key points.
Yep. Listening, picking up on those key points, and also taking those key points and maybe creating experiences for people. So if you're selling a house and you're doing a showing, and you're bringing a prospect into a house, do you walk into the house and just say, "Hey, this room's pretty nice. It's got blue walls. Hey, this is the kitchen. It has a sink and and a refrigerator," or do you try to put them in that space? Well, you first connected with them because you know that they're trying to buy a house, right? You know that they're in this space in life where they're making probably one of the most important decisions that they will ever make. And so, how do you sell that? I mean, if you notice that they have children or young kids, you're going to try to frame a story or an experience around, "Hey, this room would be not just great for the kids." I remember when I was a kid, I had a room that had a closet and I had these windows, and I used to look out the window all the time at these dogs playing in my front yard. You start sharing something. Now they're starting to look at, "Oh my gosh, what are the experiences that my kids might be able to have in this space or at this house?" So you've got to create the connection, and then as you create the connection, you can kind of pull them along to an experience or a story in their own brains as well.
Right. Yeah. I think it's definitely, you know, being able to kind of put somebody almost in, you talked about earlier, creating that movie, but in
Mhm.
those cases, like the home walkthroughs, almost putting them in that movie. Hey, can you see that scene over there? You're
Yep,
kind of that fly on the
absolutely.
wall. And you're kind of, it's almost like having that, painting that out of body experience for them. And hey, what's your future look like in this space?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, man.
When you, as you have kind of gone on this, journey of training people through communication, how much of it was, pulling things that you saw and that experiences from your past in real estate and other, careers?
Well, I think, well, there's definitely been a few careers, right? So I think one of the things that you realize is that nobody is this monolith. Nobody's this one, experience type of person. We've all had a lot of different things. Some of the similar things that we've had, we've all had pain in our lives, right? We've all had challenge in our lives at some point. We've all had a moment where something was brand new or something was exciting.
Mm.
And so we really try to create those types of connections. At least that's how it made sense to me. I'm not the only person in the world. Doggone it, there's what, almost 8 billion of us, right? There's bound to be some people that have some similar experiences. And so as I look at the different people or the different people types, I try to create what are the commonalities amongst the things that we've gone through. And even in the experience of buying a house, forget the house itself. What are some of the challenges that people experience inside of that? It's the freaking out about, oh my gosh, am I gonna be approved for this loan? It's like the whole, did we save up enough? It's,
Right.
oh my gosh, is there going to be something found in the inspection that's going to totally torpedo this dream house that I've had in my brain, right? So I've got to figure out what are all of those different moments and types of experiences that people can have, that I can use as connecting points as well. Did I totally answer your question? I think I went off track.
No, yeah, no, and no, but it's when it comes to communicating and sharing story and all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff, it's interesting because, for so long everybody's like, yeah, here's my 5 scripts that I've got to
yeah,
learn, I've got to nail down. But that is totally, it just doesn't work because we're all
right.
so different. And that same script that worked for my neighbor is not going to work for me, and it's not going to work for
Yeah,
the guy to the right of me. Um, but we all get those same, here's your scripts, go out and perfect these.
yeah,
So how have you seen just kind of the sales industry in general, because the same principles work along several
yeah,
different segments of
yeah.
sales.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you've ever had a salesman come to your house, make a house call to you. In the sales industry, there's some good things that they share and some not so great things. So one of the things that they share in the sales industry is to ask a lot of questions, right? And the purpose of asking questions is as get as many responses as you can from your prospect. And one of the things that they tell you to do is ask questions because you want your prospect to say yes as
Mhm.
much as possible. You want to get them nodding their head, right? And so salespeople will ask questions. This is important to you, right? And you say, yeah, yeah. So they'll ask you questions that are yes and no questions. The thing about that I don't like is that yes and no questions are closed-ended and they don't create connections with people, at least not sustainable ones, right? They answer a question yes, but they're inside of their head flipping through their own mental Rolodex of experiences. They don't connect with the fact that you might have had or you might understand that experience because you haven't shared it, right? You're just in front of them, giving them a solution to their
Mhm.
problem. So the next time it comes up, maybe they'll connect, maybe they'll call you, but they're not going to really remember anything about you or know anything about you, they're because they haven't connected with you. But if you connect with them through a shared experience, the next time that they are in the market for a house, or if they know somebody who's looking for a house, who are they going to call? They're going to call not Ghostbusters. They're going to call Michael because Michael connected with them. Michael understands them. Michael is personable. Michael is a peopler, right? A people person. So that's really why we want to just take some things from the sales industry, but then go to that next level with experiential questions or conversations rather than simply yes or no.
Right. And I think, something I talked to someone, oh gosh, several years ago, and he was just talking about his approach to an open house, and
Mhm.
really kind of focusing on the family and really being able to get those key things that he can pick up on. Hey, I
Yeah.
noticed those, say for you with the baseball. hey, I noticed all these trophies. What league are you in? What areas do you play in? All those types of things that you can kind of start to build connection with, and especially in the real estate space and with agents, that just, you know, if you're able to connect on those types of things, those like
Yeah.
community based things, it just kind of builds your authority within that community also.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Asking questions is key. Asking questions and finding out information and mining that information for gold is key. And also connecting with it through your own personal experience. So, I mean, if it's interesting if somebody asks about, hey, I noticed that you all are interested in baseball. But if the person has no connection to it or never says, I like baseball, or you know what, I want to like baseball, but it was just never that interesting to me, right? If they don't ever, if just, oh, cool, you're on a baseball team, that's great. So let's go to the kitchen now,
Right.
right? You still have to create a personal connection to their experience as well.
Right. Absolutely. When it comes to um, creating these personal connections, it can be, I think sometimes people are afraid of that, or maybe just they don't feel like they're very good at it because it's a little bit harder to practice,
Mhm.
until you're actually in the situation. It's not one of those scripts that you can read in the mirror. So how do
Yeah.
you get better at being able to just, connect with somebody that maybe you've never met before?
You do that in regular conversations. You do it as much as you can. Maybe you're in line at the grocery store, right? There's somebody there. As a real estate agent, one of the things that they share with you is like, listen, you cannot only stay in your space of comfort. Otherwise, that market or that circle, that sphere of influence, that's going to dry up at some point, right? You've got to figure out how to create new connections, how to expand your network. And some of the way that you do that, of course, they tell you, of course, if you're with a specific realty, to wear your pin, right, in the stores, so that people say, oh my gosh, yeah, I'm interested in buying a house, right? But in addition to people noticing you, it's about you noticing people. There may be somebody that's in the line that you see pick up Snickers, a Snickers bar at the just before they check out at the register, and you're like, man, I wish I could eat Snickers easy. I've been watching my midsection. I don't know if I can do the Snickers. You start conversations, but something as simple as that. I didn't tell them a huge story, but I shared an experience that is common: weight loss, exercise, being fanatical, or watching your diet. Right? That's a connecting point, and that took all of 2 or 3 seconds. How can you have these types of connecting conversations with people wherever you are? And that's a practice for when you're in front of somebody that is a prospect, suspect, client, or customer.
Right. So, we've talked quite a bit about the personal connection when you're kind of in front of somebody on a
Yeah.
showing or at a listing appointment. How do you project your personal story and really kind of get these points across when it's more the recorded video, or
Yeah.
the thing where it's there's that kind of divider, that wall where you're not exactly making the eye contact with your prospective client?
Yeah. So I'm going to be doing this session at NAR next in Orlando, and it's called the video storytelling formula, but I'll give a little bit
Mhm.
of it here, right? So stories are really essentially made up of 4 elements: context, character, conflict, conclusion. Right? We know what the conclusion is. We want them to buy a house. We want them to list with us. We want them to use us as their real estate professional. All right? But that's not the full thing. That's not really the solving of their problem. Their problem is that maybe they are interested in getting a house, but the market is too high for them. They can't afford. They don't know what the options are for them to be able to purchase a home. They don't understand the difference between FHA versus conventional loans. They don't understand these things. So you've got to figure out what is that conflict that your audience is facing and speak to that conflict. Right. So that's the thing that you share up front. Hey, are you struggling with blah? Or when was the last time you did blah, 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 blah? Okay. And then you set the context. Okay. Now that you understand what their conflict is, now you set the stage. Well, you know what? The market these days is this. It may be hard for you to find an interest rate lower than 3.7%. right? And that's because blah, 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 blah. So now you're kind of setting the stage, the context for what's going on in their space, right? And so you've addressed them as the characters. Maybe you pointed to you, or maybe you come back with, listen, I remember when I bought my first home 10 years ago, this was what was happening and this is how I navigated it. Okay. And so I understand the challenges that you might be having understanding these. If you don't understand FHA versus conventional, let me take 2 seconds or let me take 2 minutes and break it down for you. Boom, 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 boom. Here's how you understand that. Okay. Now, if you want some additional help with that, I'd be glad to walk you through, that process. If you're looking to purchase in the next 3 months, here's how you can get in touch with me. I'll walk you through this process and I'm going to make it so super easy for you. Right. So we just walk through context, character, conflict, and conclusion.
Right.
And the important thing, call to action.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, so when you are training agents and salespeople to, really kind of build out these stories, how do you go about, getting people not only comfortable, but, to kind of start getting those ideas turning? Because I think sometimes that can be a one of those things that holds people back. They're like, oh, I don't know what to talk about. But
right.
If they just think about all those conversations they've had in person, that's a whole list of content to start putting together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think when I talk to corporations sometimes about signature stories, people say, oh my gosh, where do I find the story? I'm not a good storyteller. I don't know where to find stories. And I'm like, there are so many places that you can find stories. What is a time that you failed at something, right? What is a time that you discovered something brand new? What is a time that you had a challenge that you overcame? Maybe it was the time that you had to study for your driver's test, right? Or for real estate agents, oh my gosh, the real estate agent test in your state to get your license. What was that like? Right? Most people know what it's like to take a test. Most people have had, even if it wasn't the real estate test, they've taken a test in school, high school, college. They've taken a test if maybe for their job. If, my wife several years ago had to do this test for her project management license, right? Or certification, the PMP, right? You may have taken a test in your career. So whatever it is that you can grab onto, go through your list of experiences that you've had when you've had a challenge, when you've had a conflict, when you had to learn a new skill. And then as you do that, sometimes it may be helpful. Not sometimes, I'm going to use more than sometimes. It's helpful to write those down. Yeah. It's helpful to write those down so that you can create a vault of experiences from which to pull and then get in the practice of pulling from that vault so you can get used to telling those stories and creating those connection points.
Right. From, the video side of things,
yeah.
How often, everybody, has their Instagram pages and their Facebook pages, and I've seen a lot of really great, YouTube pages out there for agents. How often would you kind of mix in those real, those personal type stories to where you are, building connections with people that haven't met you yet, but this is really that first introduction to you?
Yeah. So you've got to be aware of the platform as well. If you're spending, if you feel like your market is hanging out on Instagram, then I would say on Instagram or even TikTok, I would say you're probably going to be spending 60 to 80% of your time putting out personal things that may be trending topics, memes, things that are just not necessarily real estate related or sales related. And then the other 20% is, hey, this is what I do. This is how I can help you solve a problem. Here's a challenge that you might have. But you also want to be able to link people back to some larger content. Because on Instagram or Twitter, or not Twitter, or on TikTok, you've really got 15 seconds to maximum maybe 60 seconds if you're doing reels or something like that to get people's attention and get them involved in something. Right. But you want to put in your bio links. You want to send people you want to send people to maybe even a landing page. Some people use Linktree as a landing page. Right. And then you want to have something that sends people to that YouTube page where you're creating larger or a little bit longer content. And you want to update that regularly. It doesn't need to be every day. but you want to do that maybe once a week so that, if there's a question that your market is asking, you can answer a question once a week and become establish some expertise in that area. So when people think about the real estate, when people think about selling, when people think about buying, when people think about the challenges that they're having in financing or in mortgage, they think about you.
Right. When, as you've, worked with people and kind of coached them through this process, what have you seen in their, in people's confidence and just, ability to really kind of connect with people once they've kind of started doing these things?
Yeah. So, in this day and age, some of that is age based, right? Because people who are younger, who were born or grew up with TikTok and Instagram and maybe even Facebook, they're a little bit more used to creating content in that regard. The agent who grew up, who has been an agent for 20, 25 years and grew up saying, listen, I've got to send out these postcards. I got to do these mailers to the community. They are a little bit less, it takes a little bit longer to gain confidence in doing that for, generally speaking. There are some who are like, oh my gosh, I'm a tech guru, and they jump right in. But those are some of the observations that I have. But I think once you commit to it, if you decide that this is what you're going to do, and it doesn't have to be something that's overwhelming. You can batch record content. You don't have to say, oh my gosh, I got to be in front of my camera every day, every week. You can say, you know what? I'm going to spend 2 hours once a month just recording a bunch of content, and then get my assistant, my media manager or whatever to share it out and repurpose it across platforms.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's something that we do personally with our business. We're big into the batch recording, and then we also, it's something that we train, within our our parent company, Authorify, is we train, hey, here's all your templates, go knock this out in like 4 hours and you've got a month's worth of stuff. Right. But for anybody that can't make it to NAR and isn't going to be able to see you, where are some of the other places they can get some more information from you?
Well, you can go to RK3 That's Me, and you can get content there. You can contact me. All my socials, all the things are there. They can connect with some of the courses. We're actually going to be adding some real estate specific courses there very shortly. And that's the easiest place. RK3 That's .me, or what's the other one? Get in touch with RK3.com is, and both of those lead to the same place. Get in touch with RK3.com is the easiest one.
Awesome. I really appreciate it. And it is always interesting, when talking to people and, specifically talking about building connections with, potential clients and things like that. A lot of it is, just having an open communication line and having that ability to listen.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Listening is crucial. I've had quite a few experiences with people who who were good listeners, and it turned me off pretty quickly. So yeah, as agents, and it's beneficial to you as well. It doesn't only make the client feel, or the customer feel, heard, seen, but it's also your point, your way of mining or hearing these little gold nuggets that are going to make such a huge difference in your relationship with your clients and customers.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today.
Thanks, Michael. I appreciate it. This has been phenomenal. Thank you.
I want to thank Robert for taking the time to speak with us today. And remember, if you're interested in more of his tips for effectively communicating with leads, check out the episode description where I've added links to all of Robert's various platforms. So once again, if you think you or someone else on your team has an incredible story or tip to share with our community, send us a message at feedback@smartagents.com. Well, that wraps things up for this episode, but remember, follow the show wherever you listen to podcasts, and make sure to subscribe to the Smart Agents YouTube channel. Again, I'm Michael Walter, and we'll see you on the next episode.